Jane Unchained Live with breaking news. This just happened. Animal activist poses as Smithfield Foods CEO on Fox Business, trashes company to oblivion. Maria Bartiromo, known as the Money Honey, did the interview. This is making headlines everywhere. It just happened a little while ago. This is an article in the Washington Post. What happened to Maria Bartiromo? Simone Reyes, you watched it. We're going to play the clip in 1 second. But first, should we play the clip and get your reaction on the other side?
Yes.
Let's do it. It's cray-cray. This is television, just to set it up. The man speaking is saying that he is the CEO of Smithfield Foods, which is the largest pig killer in the world. And he's talking on Fox Business to Maria Bartiromo. But he's not the CEO. He is an animal rights activist with direct action everywhere. Check this out. It's cray-cray.
Have unfortunately been insufficient in many instances. These folks have been through a lot. Frankly, we might bear some responsibility for that, but we know that our Smithfield family is dedicated and resilient, and the better times are ahead. And if I may add quickly, as the new CEO and president of Smithfield, I'm personally promised that we're going to do better. And the first change under my leadership is transparency and at times brutal honesty. And the truth is that our industry, in addition to the outbreaks that are happening at our plants, our industry poses a serious threat in effectively bringing on the next pandemic with CDC data showing that 3 or 4 infectious diseases come from animals, and the conditions inside of our farms can sometimes be petri dishes for new diseases. Hog farming also causes immense harm to our air and waterways.
Well, Dennis, that's what I want to ask you about. That's what I want to ask you about, Dennis, because Smithfield Foods is the world's largest pork producer. You are in an incredible, an incredible spot to have incredible impact in the United States and across the world. But China acquired Smithfield. Your parent company is now based in Hong Kong. Can you tell us how it works? There was a post recently about the way your company operates. Are the hogs raised in the United States and then sent to China to get slaughtered and produced and packaged?
Yeah, well, Smithfield Foods is owned by a Chinese conglomerate, and the pigs are they're slaughtered in the U.S. and we have an export market, which we think is a very necessary part of a thriving economy to have open trade. There is been some leveling off of demand that we've seen in China. There was a African swine fever outbreak that happened, or a round of them really, where there was greater demand, and now they're rebuilding.
Dennis, I was told that in China, there was this African swine flu that affected so many pigs that there were 1 million pigs in the river dead. They didn't know where to get rid of the pigs that were dead. And then other sources were saying, well, you can't get sick even if the pig had African swine flu if the pig was dead. So they cut up the meat as well. How are Americans going to believe that the meat is safe if they're going to China to get slaughtered and packaged? What kind of processing securities do you have in place to assure Americans that their pork is safe, Dennis?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have extensive safety protocols in place for our essential frontline employees, from personal protective equipment that they wear to sanitation of our equipment in our facilities. And I think that our company's track record really speaks for itself in that regard. But in terms of the impact that that this industry has on the world, we really want to kind of embrace a brighter future, and with some of the impacts that our industry is having, we're actually pledging now $500 million a year starting in 2021 to mitigate some of these impacts, because what's happening in China and what's happening elsewhere, there's a lot of concerns. A lot of people are worried about the impacts that we're having,
and we've
not only in biosecurity.
We've covered this. We've covered the China story so closely. Shanghai International Holdings purchased Smithfield for $4.7 billion. Shanghai then changed its name to WH Group. Dennis, we appreciate you joining us, and we will be watching Smithfield Foods. We'll be right back.
Yes, on so many levels.
Oh my
yes.
gosh. Okay, what is your reaction to this animal activist, Matt Johnson from Direct Action Everywhere, for 6 minutes on Fox Business, posing as the CEO of the world's biggest animal killer of pigs, Smithfield Foods?
Well, first of all, what a hero he is. I mean, incredible. My second thought was, wow, vegan takeover. We are everywhere. And, you dream about moments like this, right? And you imagine the animals dreaming about a moment like this too. If only we had, the moment where somebody from Smithfield says we are contributing to like a disaster and we're the reason why there are pandemics and all of this. And you never think you're going to have that moment. And we just had it. So we need to savor it and just be like, good going, dude. Good going.
And she is getting it from all sides. I mean, it's everywhere. The headlines. You had to apologize immediately. What I found so interesting, Simone, and you're a person who has been on television. You've been on reality TV, and you know about media. And I've been on television. I was on television for 40 years.
That's right.
It's sad that you have to punk mainstream TV to discuss the next pandemic. Nobody is talking about the next pandemic because they'd have to talk about meat.
That's right.
And animal agriculture and how we're abusing animals. So we could talk about, these are some of the headlines. We're slaughtering 17 million mink in Denmark because they showed a COVID mutation, and these poor animals are getting slaughtered left and right. But God forbid the mainstream media actually talk about the underlying problem, which is the human abuse of animals. This is a zoonotic disease that jumped from animals to humans, and that the next pandemic could be even worse. Matt Johnson, and I have another clip, I'll play it in a second. He talks about the swine flu that has erupted in China, which has jumped from swine to the pig workers.
Right. That's right. It's very obvious of where all of these, basically every single one of them, when you go down the list, have started. And it starts with our abuse of animals. And we are believing that this is going to be the tipping point, right? I mean, how can you possibly see the millions of people that are dead now because of our abuse of animals, because of eating animals, and think, how could the world not literally flip on its axis, literally just change everything? Because everything that we have been doing up until this point has us at a critical, chaotic disaster level throughout the world, and especially here where we are in Los Angeles and in America in general. So yeah, it is sad that you have to actually punk a major, media outlet in order to get the truth out. But the fact is we do have to do that. And thank goodness there was the opportunity to do it today.
Absolutely. And of course, what we're talking about is that these are all pandemics in the making. Mad cow disease, swine flu. We know SARS came from bats. Now you have bird flu that has erupted in England. There's been a poultry flu, an avian flu that just erupted in England. And yet the mainstream media will not discuss this. So what's really interesting is that Direct Action Everywhere, which, I love this organization. I go there to San Francisco and Berkeley, and I march with them. The founder of it, Wayne Shung, just ran for mayor of Berkeley. They're doing incredible. So they sent in one of their top activists, Matt Johnson, who somehow convinced Fox Business that he was the CEO of Smithfield Foods, the largest pig killer in the world, which is in fact owned by a Chinese conglomerate. Mm-hmm. And Maria Bartiromo, which we are wondering what happened to her, the infamous money honey, yes, did this 6-minute interview. We have another clip. It's truly mind-boggling.
It's unfortunately been insufficient in many instances. These folks have been through a lot. Frankly, we might bear some responsibility for that, but we know that our Smithfield family is dedicated and resilient, and the better times are ahead. And if I may add quickly, as the new CEO and president of Smithfield, I'm personally promised that we're going to do better. And the first change under my leadership is transparency and at times brutal honesty. And the truth is that our industry, in addition to the outbreaks that are happening at our plants, our industry poses a serious threat in effectively bringing on the next pandemic with CDC data showing that 3 or 4 infectious diseases come from animals, and the conditions inside of our farms can sometimes be petri dishes for new diseases. Hog farming also causes immense harm to our air and waterways.
Well, Dennis, that's what I want to ask you about. Dennis, because Smithfield Foods is the world's largest pork producer. You are in an incredible, an incredible spot to have incredible impact in the United States and across the world. But China acquired Smithfield. Your parent company is now based in Hong Kong. Can you tell us how it works? There was a post recently about the way your company operates. Are the hogs raised in the United States and then sent to China to get slaughtered and produced and packaged?
Yeah, well, Smithfield Foods is owned by a Chinese conglomerate, and the pigs are they're slaughtered in the U.S. and we have an export market, which we think is a very necessary part of a thriving economy to have open trade. There is been some leveling off of demand that we've seen in China. There was a African swine fever outbreak that happened, or a round of them really, where there was greater demand, and now they're rebuilding.
Dennis, I was told that in China, there was this African swine flu that affected so many pigs that there were 1 million pigs in the river dead. They didn't know where to get rid of the pigs that were dead. And then other sources were saying, well, you can't get sick even if the pig had African swine flu if the pig was dead. So they cut up the meat as well. How are Americans going to believe that the meat is safe if they're going to China to get slaughtered and packaged? What kind of processing securities do you have in place to assure Americans that their pork is safe, Dennis?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have extensive safety protocols in place for our essential frontline employees, from personal protective equipment that they wear to sanitation of our equipment in our facilities. And I think that our company's track record really speaks for itself in that regard. But in terms of the impact that that this industry has on the world, we really want to kind of embrace a brighter future, and with some of the impacts that our industry is having, we're actually pledging now $500 million a year starting in 2021 to mitigate some of these impacts, because what's happening in China and what's happening elsewhere, there's a lot of concerns. A lot of people are worried about the impacts that we're having,
and we've
not only in biosecurity.
We've covered this. We've covered the China story so closely. Shanghai International Holdings purchased Smithfield for $4.7 billion. Shanghai then changed its name to WH Group. Dennis, we appreciate you joining us, and we will be watching Smithfield Foods. We'll be right back.
I can watch that all day. A couple of things that I noticed, I'd like to get your take on it. And we're going to take anybody's comments. You comment, and we do have some comments. Sophia Ramos, okay. Direct Action Everywhere. Just giving shouts out to Direct Action Everywhere. Please share this. The truth is out. First of all, Maria Bartiromo, known as the Money Honey, is talking sort of casually about, there's 1 million dead hogs floating in the river. How can we be sure our pork is safe? Instead of, oh my God, this is an abomination. The blindness to the suffering of animals inherent in mainstream media defies almost imagination. It's almost sociopathic. And I'm not directing that at her. That's across the board. Okay. I mean, you can talk about the slaughterhouse workers, and our hearts go out to the slaughterhouse workers. And, you and I and other groups, we work to bring vegan food to slaughterhouse workers and to try to find them other jobs so they don't have to be killing for a living and getting PTSD and depression and alcoholism and everything else that comes with killing, so that other people can run around town in their Lululemon outfits talking about how peaceful they are because they're not doing the killing themselves. Okay. But what really strikes me is it's verboten. It's verboten to talk about the suffering of the animals. You can see animals being sliced up in some of those pictures. You can't talk about it. Just like when mainstream media was covering the culling, which is another way of massacring of 17 million mink. Yes. When you try to show the conditions, you're put on trial. We just did this story the other day. A courageous young man just went into some Canadian mink farms and ran video. He's facing 10 years in prison. However, the people who kill 17 million mink, they're being consoled for their industry being in trouble. So the mainstream media will talk about 17 million mink being slaughtered and never once mention the suffering of the animals. Not only that, but instead of talking about getting rid of the fur industry, then they start talking about, well, let's just have biosecurity at the fur farms. So the mainstream media needs to be punked. I was in the mainstream media for a long time, and by hook or by crook, I was able to do an animal rights story every week. Don't know if it may be popular, but I did it. I did it because I know that A, it's morally wrong not to talk about it. And B, well, we're killing them. They're killing us. We wouldn't be in this pandemic if we had respect for animals. It's a zoonotic illness. So what are your thoughts on that interview and how she was discussing, 1 million dead pigs floating in the river? But is Americans' pork okay to eat? Assuming that Americans are going to eat the pork without even asking, would Americans want to choose another product, like fruits and vegetables?
Right. Or fake meat, fake pork.
Yeah, or Beyond Meat or Impossible Burger. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's disgusting, and it's extremely depressing when you are, at home, turning on the TV and watching and listening to normalized violence. And that's what it is. It's normalizing violence. And you think to yourself, impressionable children are listening to this. It's the news, and what does that say for our society? And it's basically never, as you said, you'll see the pieces of the animal, right, being cut up, but you won't see the beating of the animal. You won't see the pleading eyes of the animal. You won't see them freezing to death and having their bodies stuck to the inside of a transport truck. You won't see that. You won't see the blood. You won't hear the screams. None of that is something that you're going to find on mainstream media, which is why we as activists have to do things like this, to hijack moments, to pose as other people, to punk people. I'm sure that is an uncomfortable situation that he was in. And now he has to worry, are there going to be like repercussions from that? But we as activists, it is our duty to present this truth and I always say, the rest of the world is looking at, a stage. This is all staged on what the meat industry and animal agriculture wants you to believe is the truth. But we as activists, we take you around back. We let you in the back door and we show you what happens before it's all prettied up and presented to you. So that is why we have to continue to do this, and we have to support the whistleblowers and the activists that are brave enough to do this. This was a very brave thing that he did. And my heart just is so full of gratitude to DxE.
Yeah, exactly. It's on the radio too. 2-6, says Tina. Listen, some of these I can't publish because of the words, but they're saying basically bleeping, shocking, and disgusting. The whole bleeping world, murdering animal industry will die, hopefully before we all die. I don't want to die because of meat-eating people. This is what's happening. It's not a personal choice anymore, any more than driving drunk and going the wrong way down the freeway is a personal choice. Everything's a personal choice. If you take the life of another human being, it's a bad choice, but it's a personal choice. And so this whole nonsense about how, you can't tell me what to do, this is a personal choice. How low do we have to go? Do we have to have another pandemic that's even deadlier than this one? They made reference in this interview. There was a lot of real facts that aren't being discussed that came up in this interview, thanks to Matt Johnson. The fact that there is a swine flu in China right now, and it has jumped from animals to people. And you know what they're doing? They're building pig skyscrapers so that pigs are raped in this category, grabbed from their mothers in this floor, fattened up in horrible cages in this floor so they don't spend calories, and then slaughtered in another floor. That's the human response. It's sick, it's twisted, but all of animal agriculture is. There's no nice way to kill one, much less, what is it? How many hundreds of billions of animals do we kill every year? So do you think that the other mainstream media, after experiencing Schadenfreude and laughing about Maria Bartiromo, who, look, it could have been any number of people who got punked. Sure. Okay. We know I was in the news. I wasn't making my own calls generally, unless I was getting an exclusive to book people. It's like you're booked, you're sitting there. They say, hey, your next guest is the CEO of Smithfield Foods, and you just go with it. Although in a humorous way, I got the sense that she was starting to realize there's something that's not quite right with this interview. And then when they start playing the music at the end, they're all going, what's going wrong? There's something wrong with this interview. The CEO of Smithfield Foods is saying that it's responsible for pollution, water pollution, air pollution,
and
pandemics, workers getting sick.
This is priceless. God. This is going to go down. We all needed this moment, and it has obviously lightened the day. But at the same time, it brings us back to, why do we have to do this? All we're trying to do as a movement is tell the truth. Why is it so hard for us to be able to have a platform in mainstream media to do it? Thank heavens for Jane Unchained and for all of the outlets and that are pushing one agenda, which is tell the people the truth. And I truly have to believe that if people know what happens in slaughterhouses, see what's in their food, for heaven's sake, see that what kind of diseases can be avoided if you stop eating animals, that they would make the right choices. But humans are in a real disadvantage because the truth is always being hidden from them when it comes to animals. So thank heavens for the activists. Thank goodness. And, Maria, sorry, but the truth had to come out, right?
Yeah. Look, having been a news anchor myself, I feel bad for her. It's no fun getting punked. And it could happen to anyone. And there have been famous punking cases. I was almost punked once. And it was kind of funny. If I'll tell you the story, I grew up in Midtown Manhattan, and I was a weekend anchor at WCBS. And between the early show and the late show, sometimes they'd send us out to do stories, reporting, because it was a small staff on the weekends. I was a weekend anchor. And they said, somebody's throwing $20 bills or money, cash, out a window of a hotel. They say they're the new lottery winner. And it turned out that there was an unnamed, unclaimed ticket. And so, you know how the tabloids in New York, who's the winner? Who's the winner? So they said, hey, go. It was just nearby. Go and do a story on this. It could be the big winner of the big lottery. She's throwing money out the window. So I go. Now, this is where it helps to be born and raised right in Midtown Manhattan. The first thing that occurred to me is this isn't such a great hotel. If I had just won $60 million, I'd be throwing money out of the Plaza or the Waldorf Astoria, not this.
That's hilarious.
So, and then the second thing when I walked in, I noticed that they had ordered in from like a deli. It was near Carnegie Deli. And I also thought, wow, if you just won all these many millions of dollars, you'd just call the phone and bring me whatever on tray. You wouldn't go down and order. Then there was a group of people in the back room that wouldn't open their door. So I was very suspicious of the whole thing. And I said, look, I'm not going to report it. We could do a story saying that she claims. Oh, and when she came out of the room, I said, can you show me the ticket? No, she said she had it in her cleavage. She couldn't show it.
Oh, no.
Blah, blah, blah. So, but other news media outlets just reported, this is the winner. It was on the front page of one of the tabloids. I forget which, one of the dailies. I was very happy that I didn't get caught, but you can get caught. We were being punked. We were all being punked. So I know how that is. But in this case, this is something far more important than just, a lottery winner. This is about the suffering and the violence, the horrible violence that is being inflicted on hundreds of millions, billions and billions of sentient beings called pigs who are smarter than our dogs and cats, by the way. So as we wrap up, I don't know. I'm feeling like an urge to just watch a little bit more of it because it's so good. You ready to hit it one more time?
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go.
Have unfortunately been insufficient in many instances. These folks have been through a lot. Frankly, we might bear some responsibility for that, but we know that our Smithfield family is dedicated and resilient, and the better times are ahead. And if I may add quickly, as the new CEO and president of Smithfield, I'm personally promised that we're going to do better. And the first change under my leadership is transparency and at times brutal honesty. And the truth is that our industry, in addition to the outbreaks that are happening at our plants, our industry poses a serious threat in effectively bringing on the next pandemic with CDC data showing that 3 to 4 infectious diseases come from animals, and the conditions inside of our farms can sometimes be petri dishes for new diseases. Hog farming also causes immense harm to our air and waterways.
Well, Dennis, that's what I want to ask you about. Dennis, because Smithfield.
See, I mean, he gets all these great points in. Animal agriculture causing water and air pollution. Yes, we're responsible. Smithfield's responsible for the COVID-19 outbreaks in the slaughterhouses and all the workers, who got sick and dying. And also the next pandemics. He just hit a lot of the big points. In fact, one of the headlines talked about how he completely shredded. He trashes the company to oblivious Maria Bartiromo. Oh my gosh.
Yay.
I needed a laugh. Laugh, because here at Jane Unchained News Network, and this is world headquarters, my living room, all I do is constantly from morning till night get emails, texts, and messages and videos from people, stop this, stop that. And it's one horror after the other. And, it's overwhelming sometimes. And to have a fun story like this, in the sense of a creative, that's what I love about DxE. DxE is incredibly creative. They just think outside the box. What are your thoughts on DxE?
DxE, I always say that, every movement needs a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King. And I think that they toggle very well between both. The fact is they are fearless, but they also have their heads, screwed on pretty straight. Do you know what I mean? They don't take risks that would harm anyone. That is not what our movement is, but they push the envelope, which is what you have to do. Every single social justice movement, from the civil rights movement to the suffrage movement to the LGBTQ plus movement, especially during the time when there was no treatment for AIDS. When you look at ACT UP and all of these groups that literally changed history, it was an effort that involved not only writing the letters and sending the emails and making your phone calls, which are so important, but literally pushing the envelope the way that DxE does, showing up, getting noticed, breaking through the wall to say, we are here and we will not be silent. And that is what DxE does so incredibly well. I mean, I can't even imagine how this was actually done. How it is that
I honestly do not. It's like when you get those emails that say, act now, or your account at XYZ is going to be discontinued. And then you look at the email and it's like squiggly, and you go, no, spam. I don't want to get hacked. I don't want to get punked. But look, people are getting hacked. I mean, the major agencies of government are getting infiltrated. People figure out ways. But this was a creative, nonviolent, want to emphasize that, way of forcing media that has abrogated its journalistic responsibility to report the truth, to talk about the issues that they systematically ignore, which is the next pandemic. In fact, night after night, I hear people talking about, we've got to figure out how we're going to treat the next pandemic. Hello? Why not figure out how to avoid the next pandemic?
That's right.
That would require talking about what causes pandemics, and that these are zoonotic diseases that jump from animals to humans because of our abuse of animals. Okay. It first cropped up in a slaughter market in China. We know that there are people who have other theories. The lab theory has been discredited. The point is, as Dr. Silas Rao points out, it really doesn't matter exactly where. It's a zoonotic illness, and that is an illness that jumps from animals to humans, and it's our abuse of animals, whether it's in the wild or in factory farming or in the laboratory. It is our abuse of animals that's coming back to haunt us. And this is what the culture, the carnist culture, does not want to face. They sit there and they talk about this terrible pandemic, and then they talk about the turkey they're going to eat for Thanksgiving or the ice cream that they want, and they are shills. The mainstream media broadcasters are shills for the meat and dairy industry. They get it in every chance they can. It doesn't take a brain surgeon. You look at the advertisements, the commercials in between the segments, they're all for meat, dairy, and pharmaceutical, with an occasional insurance commercial and, furniture commercial and car commercial. Mostly they're for people either eating really bad, unhealthy food, meat, dairy, and eggs, or people requiring pills because they've eaten the bad food. Cholesterol lowering pills, erectile dysfunction pills, pills to deal with memory loss, pills to deal with all these things that healthy diet would enable you to have a greater statistical chance of avoiding.
That's right. And also, there's obviously not going to be anything other than perhaps a vaccine, which even that isn't 100% effective, that can say, well, if you live this way, you're not going to get COVID. Okay, fair enough. However, we are seeing the highest numbers of people that are dying from COVID are the people that have the other, diabetes and heart disease and high blood pressure and obesity. Now, these are things that, don't we want to arm ourselves that if somehow, some way, as careful as we're being, if we do get a virus, that our immune system is strong, at least to give it a fair chance to fight it. And that comes obviously from leaving the animal products off of your menu and eating a plant-based diet. We want to give ourselves a fighting chance in this world, in our life, for our health, and I keep remembering, I watched that movie Contagion, And of
Me
course, that
too.
movie scared everybody, right? I mean, that was
Yeah.
a terrifying movie. And at the very end, and I'm sure it's not a spoiler, everybody's seen this movie. You're like, oh my God, okay, okay, some people survived, but basically everybody's dead from this this virus that came from animals. And then you see the very last scene, they're carrying another animal, and they're telling people you're going to do it all over again.
And here's an opinion piece in the New York Times. Our cruel treatment of animals led to the coronavirus. The conditions that lead to the emergence of new infectious diseases are the same ones that inflict horrible harm on animals. Now, they put that opinion piece up, but then they continue to advertise and promote meat and dairy and turkey for Thanksgiving and pork products.
The morning shows. I mean, the morning shows now are all holiday shows, right? The Talk, The View, all of them.
Yeah.
I cannot believe their cooking segments, and I cannot believe how they're normalizing violence as something that's actually good for you and being unhealthy. All of so many morning shows have their, what should we make? And they say, oh, use the whole stack of butter. It's the holidays. Treat yourself. I'm like, treat yourself to heart disease? Well, that's not treating yourself. It's normalizing violence. They never talk about how the animal got to that plate. Not ever. Ugh.
Absolutely. And this is one of my favorites. Before you label me extreme, take a look inside a slaughterhouse, because really that's what it boils down to. We're forced to take these unconventional methods to get the word out. It's like if you're living in an oppressive society, a totalitarian society, and you're handing out little brochures under pain of death to people. Well, we're using social media. And please share this out, people, because people need to know. Oh, we got a whole bunch of comments. Hold on. That's why I got rid of the TV. Tina, yes, very good. I think you've got another one. If we all went vegan, we cured this. Exactly. We would not be. Okay, the video gave Isaac Farias goosebumps. DxE's getting a lot of applause from Victoria. I love this. Terry loves it. Okay, so everybody is just really, yes, remember the Spanish flu in about 1918. By the way, it didn't really have anything to do with Spain. It was actually, again, something that they believe came about from animal agriculture. So everybody's really, really happy about this. I want to thank you, Simone Reyes, for joining me on very short notice. Yes. Incredible comments as usual. Everybody is thrilled. We're getting just this is one of my favorites right here. Take pandemics off the table. No, I mean, literally share this out, people, because, okay, this has to be my favorite comment. DxE is Mission Impossible level 2. Right on.
Yes.
Right on. And, let's give it for Matt Johnson.
Yay.
Matt.
Yay.
Oh, man. That's not easy. And you could see a couple of times he was like, he had to keep it together because you could tell that the whole thing was so hilarious. All right, everybody, share this video out. Keep going live, as we say. Go live every time you make a vegan meal. Take a picture of it, put it on Instagram or Facebook. Share this video out. Become a member of the Jane Unchained team. Let's change the world, and maybe we won't need to do April Fool's gimmicks for animal liberation. Thank you, Emma Gerko, another one of our great activists. All right, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.